boys, and welcome to the KingDumb podcast. For those of you who this is your first time listening to the podcast, I am your host, KingBullet, and I talk about anything and everything that I find to be interesting or that I have some sort of educated input onto. Uh, Sometimes we'll talk about the content creator world, sometimes we'll talk about finances, sometimes we'll go all wild and crazy and talk about space. And in this episode, I wanted to get a little serious. And I wanted to talk about something that has a massive stigma behind it, and that is mental health. So, for anybody who knows me or knows my content, knows that I'm a huge advocate for mental health, for positive mental health, I should say. Uh, my unofficial stream motto is a smile a day. As long as I can make one person smile every single day, I had a successful day. And, sometimes that seems like, oh, well, that's really dumb. But that's how I kind of led my stream for 99% of my streaming career. And I also was the founder and, well, yeah, I guess founder and co-founder, I don't know, whatever. I thought up and created the founder and co-creator. There we go. Raids of Love. If you guys don't know what Raids of Love is, it's a community of content creators where a lot of people come together and we promote positivity as much as we can, whether it's positive mental health, whether it's donating to charities. There's a million different things. We've raised, I think, over $15,000 for different charities, and we work with a lot of creators and all this other stuff. I'm not going to go into too much of the details. If you want to see more about what Raids of Love is and what we do, we actually have a website. It's raidsoflove.com, RAIDSOFLOVE.com, COM, if you want to see more info on what we do there. But I want to talk about mental health as a whole, not just in the content creator sphere, because I'm not a big fan of the fact that there's a huge stigma around mental health. A lot of people don't like talking about mental health, and whenever I said that this episode is going to be about it, I'm sure a lot of people out there were like, "Oh God, this is gonna be interesting," because there is that, "Oh, don't talk about it. It's a bad thing to talk about." Oh no, but I think it needs to be talked about more. And I think the negative side of mental health needs to be talked about more, because the more that it's talked about, the more that people are thinking about it and trying to do something about helping those who are in the negative side of mental health. And being able to recognize that is also very, very big. So for context and everything, the last charity event for Raids of Love, we raised money for Center for Suicide Awareness. And what this Center for Suicide Awareness does is they have a text only helpline that they call Hope Line. And what it is they have trained people on and ready to text anybody at any time that uh, texts in. It's so weird to describe, because usually it's like you call in for like the suicide hotline and stuff like that, but it's all text based, and their trained people will sit there and text you and help you through whatever it is that you're going through. And one of the things that the founder, who we actually had on stream with us during the event, stressed was it's not just a suicide hotline, it is a mental health hotline. They've had kids as young as 6 years old text in and be like, I got bullied at school, or my brother was doing this or whatever. And like the young kids were like just texting in about the really rough day that they had. And like that was completely fine. They still sat there There was no mention of any kind of like self harm or potential for self harm or anything like that. It was just they had a bad day, you know? And that's one of the things that I love is because a lot of people will be like, "Oh, suicide hotline." Well, if you go there, obviously you're thinking about harming yourself or, doing worse, and you only call there if you're on that ledge, right? And that's not what Center for Suicide Awareness is about. What they're about is trying to make sure that people don't get to that edge, right? They want to curb it before it gets there because sometimes when it gets there, it's too late, right? And so I really really respect Center for Suicide Awareness for that. And for any of you who would like to, have the information. I am not sponsored. I am not working with them currently. I don't have any connection with them whatsoever unless we're working out some charity event stuff. But I highly encourage you to go check them out. And if you want to text into their Hope line, you text the word Hope line, HOPELINE, to 741 741. So you text Hopeline, HOPELINE, to the number 741 741. No spaces or anything like that, but it'll connect you to the a person, an actual person who will sit there and text you and go over stuff. And by the time they're done, a lot of the times they will have tried to, at least put people on the right direction to have a better mental health standpoint in a more long term sense. I actually texted in once because I was in a very, very negative state of mind. My brain didn't want to finish that sentence for some reason. I was in a very negative state of mind, and I was like, you know what? I just need to talk to somebody. And I didn't want to talk to like my mom or my girlfriend or anybody like that because it was something that I was not very proud of, and I wanted to get some input from somewhere else outside of my normal avenues of input. And I didn't have a therapist, right? Like I didn't have someone that I could go to talk about this stuff. So I texted into the Hope line. I texted them, and we were there texting for quite a bit of time and working through a whole bunch of stuff. And then by the end they were like, here's some of these resources, check them out. They might be able to help you out in ways better than what they're able to do. And like they they gave me the tools to be able to change my mental health in the more positive way that it was possible, right? And that was huge. I was super appreciative of it. And, there's times where people are like, well, I don't want to be given this or that. Like, I just want it to be fixed. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Unfortunately, whenever it comes to mental health, there's no just switch that people can flip and it's all better. And a lot of people think that there is a switch like that. And it's really upsetting because the people who are going through a very bad state of mind usually don't how how can I like describe this? People who are currently not mentally that's still not a good way. When people have a bad mental health state of mind, they usually will feel like they're a burden and want to not reach out to anybody or anything. And because of that, it leads to more issues and more problems. And a lot of the times they will hide it from people that are closest to them because they don't want people to worry about them, right? And so more stuff gets thrown on top of it, and then it starts leading towards the very bad end of self-harm and or suicide. So it's a very slippery slope, and when you're in that state of mind, A lot of people are like, oh, well, just be like, oh, I have a bad state of mind. Oh, look at that. Things are much brighter over there. Let me just go over there. I'm happy. Like, it doesn't work like that. And I wish it did, trust me, because my God, I would love to be able to turn my brain off or flip a switch and go from, man, I can't do crap with my life anymore to, God damn, I'm doing pretty good right now, aren't I? But it doesn't happen. It doesn't matter if you go to the Hope Line, doesn't matter if you go to a therapist, talk to your friends, whatever. It just there's no switch to change it. It's a process, and it's a very uncomfortable process. And the best way to take care of that in the long term isn't to just like kind of work on it and get over it like a lot of people will say, but to actually seek help from trained professionals, um, therapists. For those of you who are like, well, what are the trained professionals? Therapy. Therapy helps a lot. I went to therapy in the past, and because of some of the stuff that has gone on in my life, I am planning on returning to therapy for the first time in about 4 years. And that's okay. Yeah, I would love to be able to be like, oh, I don't need therapy, but after a while, you need something. You need a little extra from what people around you generally are able to give, and that's okay. I'm a big advocate of practicing what you preach, and I tell everybody all the time, if you are struggling mentally, go seek help, get a little bit of help. Yeah. Get a little bit of a cough apparently. Get a little bit of a help and get back into the state of mind where you can be a little bit more happy and a little bit more comfortable with who you are. And, I'd be a massive hypocrite if I told everybody that and then just turned around and never actually, you know, went to therapy while I'm mentally struggling, right? Well, again, I'm going to be. I'm looking for a therapist actively. I'm going to be working on trying to find one. And, that's okay. And I feel like more people, especially more people in the content creator sphere, need to openly talk about this because a lot of people, it doesn't matter if you're a small content creator or a big content creator, a lot of people look to content creators for guidance, right? Um, they'll ask content creators like, "What do you do if this is going on?" Or like they'll pose questions or throw some kind of issue out there, and like the content creator usually isn't prepared to be able to help somebody with them, but they'll throw it out there anyway because they just want someone else's input. They want to talk to someone else about it, right? And it in one way it's like, oh well, they trust me enough to tell me this, but another way that puts stress onto the content creator because they're like, crap, how do I help this? Oh God, oh no, so I think if people who are in a more public spotlight talked about their process of taking care of their mental health, it would actually do a lot better for a lot of different people. If we'll say for example, you're watching a content creator play a game and there's a death in the family. It's like someone dies or an animal dies that's really near and dear to the main character's heart, and it makes the content creator get a little bit emotional and they're like, "Oh my God, I miss my dog." And but like they're actually like, "Oh my God, this hit me way harder than it should have." If all it takes like, I'm gonna have to, talk to my therapist this week. If they say, "Hey, I'm gonna need to, do a little bit of extra therapy," or I can't wait for my therapy later on this week. Gonna get some stuff off my chest, go through and get some tools to, you know, get better. Because that's all the therapists do. They don't just like make you better. And that's another big thing that people don't understand is therapists will give you the tools to better your mental health state, but they will not just outright be like, oh, hey, you're fixed now. Trust me, I wish that's how it worked, but it's not. And it sucks, but there's not much you can do about it, right? So the tools that I was given, because I was in therapy once upon a time, the tools that I was given was to try to help me get through some of the PTSD that I had from my father and from an ex of mine, and try to like get my mental health to be a little bit more stable, because a lot of times something would happen and my mental health was so bad I would just shut down. Just straight up, I shut down. And it was bad. It was really bad for quite a while. And therapy gave me the means to be able to not have to deal with that as much. Now, do I still struggle with it here and there? Absolutely. It is a never ending struggle. And that's kind of what's really crappy is like mental health is a never ending struggle to have go in a decent favor, right? Um, but at the end of the day, I do manage to have a better better stance mentally than I would have on a in a normal regard, right? So, and the other thing that I want to talk about is the toxic outlook of just suck it up. And I'm saying the toxic outlook because a lot of people will be like, oh, well, that's a uh, toxic masculinity, right? Where a lot of times, like I was told by my father all the time, be a man, suck it up, all this really ridiculous stuff. And I was never allowed to feel emotions. I was never allowed to feel a certain way, ever, because I was always told to suck it up. Men don't cry. Men don't do this. Men don't do that. And it's a very toxic outlook, but it also happens to females and stuff like that as well. Like we're taught to repress emotions because as a as a species, as a society, when people are crying near us, we're real awkward about that. We're like, "Oh god, this person's crying. What do I do? I don't know. It's awkward." And nobody wants to be in that awkward state, awkward position, and so they're like, "Ooh, just stop. Look funny. Ooh, haha." And that so they try to make something funny or like get them to stop crying without actually helping to take care of the reason that they were crying in the first place, right? So there is that toxic outlook, and I really really think more people need to talk about getting through that toxic outlook, because that's at the forefront of a lot of people's minds, right? And uh, I, how can I say this? The founder of Center for Suicide Awareness said it right. Talking about it is something that makes people uncomfortable, but it makes them uncomfortable because they don't know how to approach it, right? And the more we talk about it, the more we normalize mental health and, talking about this stuff, the easier it will be to approach it, right? Uh, Society standards as of right now, if you really think about it, if you're, I don't know, say you're out with some friends and you see someone in the corner just kind of alone, they're kind of crying and like they're just not doing too great. A lot of people will be like, "Oh God, something's going on over there. Go to the other place." That a lot of people will just look away, kind of let them be. But if we start normalizing like something's going on, and even if it's a complete stranger, you just go up to them, "Hey, you all right? Something going on. Can I help with anything? Can I, can I, do anything?" Even if they're a complete stranger, that little reach out alone changes their entire day. Because a lot of times when people are going through this, especially if it's in a public setting, they're worried about making a scene, but also they're worried that like there is that fear like nobody cares. They're terrified by the possibility that I'm here bawling my eyes out in the corner in this very, very crowded area. I know people have seen me or heard me, and nobody cares. Like, yeah, in one regard, you go and approach them, and they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't mean to make a scene." It's like, no, I'm not. I'm not here to make a scene. I'm here to talk. I'm here to help out. And you just sit there and you talk to the people that are going through this. That's gonna be a world of difference for them. They're gonna be so ecstatic that someone was willing to sit down and talk to them for a little bit, and even if it was just a complete stranger, like that's gonna mean the world to those people, right? And normalizing a world where that is creating a world where that is the normal nature of things would be amazing, right? Because I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to live in a world where if someone has something going on, nobody wants to help them. I don't want to live in a world where if this really big weight is on my shoulders and I try to talk to anybody or take the weight off of my shoulders, I'm told to man up and just deal with it. I don't want to live in that world. I want to live in the world where even if it's just one person. If I'm having a really bad day, something hits me the wrong way, and I just end up like going with a whole, I'm kind of crying it out a little bit. I want to live in a world where someone comes over, even if I don't want to talk about it. They're like, "Hey, you all right?" Like that makes that person feel seen, feel validated. Even if it's a really dumb reason. "Oh, I stubbed my toe. You all right?" "Yeah, I just stubbed my toe." "All right, well, I mean, you need anything?" Sorry you stubbed your toe," and then if it's something kind of like that, I mean, you could probably get them laughing and make a joke out of it, right? But like if it's something serious and like, yeah, just going through some shit, it's like, all right, well, is there anything that I can help with? And most of the time they'll be like, no, I just have to deal with it. But you asking and offering just made their day, like made whatever they were crying about or having problems with feel a whole heck of a lot less daunting because there was someone who cared. I said this during the charity event, and I wish I could say it was me, but I have no idea where it came from or who it was. I just remember hearing a story. Someone was just driving around with their friend the one day, and their friend was smiling and waving at everybody. Didn't matter if they were passing them in the cars, didn't matter if they were sitting at a red light, if they were walking, and whatever. They'd wave at everybody. And so the person asked, "Why are you smiling and waving at everybody?" And the friend replied, "You never know what someone's going through that day. Sometimes a smile and a wave can save a life. And it takes absolutely no time to do it. We're driving by people. I was able to potentially save hundreds of lives just on our little short journey, and like that there is huge. Like, if that isn't the most wholesome thing in the world, I don't know what is. And like, I've I've tried. I'll admit it. I've tried. I've tried to be that way and be like that nice and smile and wave at everybody that I can, but I am not that social and I'm not that good at being someone like that I can actually do it. But I want to live in a world where that is a thing. Instead of driving down the road and people are, walking along and you almost hit them and you're like, ah, God, you stupid people. No, it's, hey guys, how you doing? Don't know them, just, how you doing? Just driving by. I want to live in that world. I want to be waved at by random people on the street, even if they don't know me. But, that's something that it would take a lot of work to get society to be at that point, I would say. Um, but bringing it back to the mental health kind of aspect and talking about it, um, another thing that the founder of Center for Suicide Awareness said was straying away from like saying the word suicide when talking to someone who is considering it. You don't want to do that, which I thought was really interesting. Now, she is a licensed and trained therapist, and like she's talked to many people who were going down that path, and she's like, she told everybody during the stream, she was like, the best thing to do if someone is thinking about hurting themselves, or you think someone's thinking about hurting themselves, is just to bluntly confront them about it. Like, don't be like, hey, are you all right, man? Like, whatever. No, be like, I know I've seen some red flags, so I want to ask, are you thinking about harming yourself, or are you thinking about committing suicide? And like, that's freaking terrifying. Like, I don't care who you are, I don't care how well you are a people person, that's terrifying to ask. Because it surprised me, because I always thought like you don't want to say that because like that'll trigger them and be like, "Oh, yeah, I got to get on that." Right? Like, but you know, confronting it and being like, "Hey, this is what you're thinking. Are you sure you want to go through with it?" Like, obviously in some settings you want to, maybe not just bluntly say it, but in a general sense that's usually how it is, right? And it like I was in awe that that was what I was being told to do, right? Because I have been that friend to talk to a friend so that they wouldn't jump off that edge. Wow, I almost made that sound really horrible. My brain is not working right, or I should say my mouth is not working as fast as my brain is working. I am that friend who has helped people not jump off that ledge, where I would talk them down and get them to, relax and not worry about as much or anything like that, right? And direct them to getting better help throughout their lives and to be able to get through some of this stuff. And, it, I would have never, and I have never, whenever I talk someone down, just straight up approach them super bluntly like that. And it's very weird. And honestly, I would have probably been like, no, there's no way. If this lady was not a licensed and trained therapist, professional person, like a lot of accolades. And I would have never thought, I would have never have done it. I would have been like, no, you're lying to me. No, get out of here with that. That was the suggestion. And I'm very surprised by that. But when she described it to us, I was like, that kind of makes a little bit of sense though, because a lot of people don't like to think about the thing that they're thinking about, right? Whenever someone is starting to have that big of a mental health problem where they're thinking about harming themselves or worse, a lot of times if you just bring it up very bluntly, like, hey, I know you're thinking about doing this, don't do it. Like, they're like, oh God, was it that obvious? Maybe I shouldn't. Oh God. And like, it'll make them feel uncomfortable, and it'll make them really think about it. Then they'll be like, maybe I don't want to do that. You know. Um, I don't remember the exact statistic or anything like that, but a lot of the times, whenever someone is talked off the edge, and brought back down to a slightly better mental health state, they feel better and are happier because they didn't go through with what they were thinking of, right? They're appreciative, they're thankful it didn't work out, and then there are some people who are like, oh, I hate it. But in a general sense, people are usually, you know, thankful they were talked down. And so, whenever they're forced to think about it, it's really interesting. I would have never thought it, would have never even considered it, but that's what we were told. And I think as far as like the stigma behind mental health, I really appreciate the Raids of Love community and Center for Suicide Awareness and everybody like really trying to break this stigma, right? Because mental health is something that a lot of people will avoid 9 times out of 10, especially in the content creator sphere. I see all the time where people are having a really rough day. Someone's not doing too great. They come into a streamer's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And they're like, "Oh, I had a pretty bad day." Like they'll be like, uh, my grandma or my mom passed away the other day, and so it's been really rough." And the content creator will be like, "Ah, God, don't trauma dump onto my chat. We're trying to be happy here. Don't make us feel sad." Like, it's such a crap take, man. Like, whoever says that, whoever thinks that, I'm sorry, you should stop being a content creator. Just flat out stop. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear about you. You are the garbage human that everybody tries to avoid being. Flat out. I will say it very bluntly. If someone finds it so that you or your community is a safe space that they can actually talk about what's going on, and then you make them feel like crap for it, you are you are a hugely garbage person. And I never want to see them actually succeed as a content creator or just in general. Because if you are so adamant about making sure people don't just dump trauma on you, then you could have been doing something to help them in the meantime. Instead of saying, "Oh, don't trauma dump on my chat," be like, "Oh, wow, that's really rough. Message me, like private message me, or like for my community, I have a safe space." I'll be like, that really sucks. Do you need to use the safe space?" And sometimes people will be like, "Yeah, yeah, I need to." Other times people will be like, "No, I really don't want to talk about it." And then that's it, right? And that's a better way to approach it. Like, I don't want to I don't want to talk about it in stream. Like, that's a very personal thing. Like, let's talk one on one after stream. Like, that's the way that you should do it. Or even if you don't want to talk about it, be like, "That really sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything we can do to try to help you feel a little bit better?" Or, if you want to lurk, hopefully we get to help you have some laughs. Like, any kind of approach where it's just not a, "Don't trauma dump on my stream. How dare you?" Like, there's so many different ways that you could approach that. So many. And there's so many people who don't approach it that way. They will approach it with the, "Oh, God, you're the worst kind of person because I was having a good stream and now you go and tell me this stuff and people are real sad and they're now this stream's about you instead of whatever game I'm playing." Ugh. Like, God, garbage people. Don't forget to hydrate, everybody. Uh, but yeah, so mental health, stigma. Get away from the stigma that mental health should not be talked about. I don't want to make this episode too long this week because mental health, there's a lot to talk about, but once you start getting into the deeper ends of mental health and talking to people and getting them to kind of step down from the edge, like I I went to college for psychology. I was going to have a double bachelor's degree. I would have had a bachelor's in psychology and a bachelor's in criminal justice. And So I do have some knowledge. Like, I'm no therapist. I was not going to be a therapist. I was going to be a profiler to help try to, catch killers or whatever. Um, Obviously, it didn't work out, financial aid and stuff like that. But like, I have a little bit of knowledge and capability of talking about this, but I'm still nowhere close to being an expert on any of this or being able to talk about this in a confident and informative manner. And like, I don't want to make it sound like I'm the authority on this, right? But I do want to make it sound like I am the authority of just don't be a garbage human with this stuff, man. Like, I don't know, there's a lot of aspects to mental health, right? And I know some of them, but go seek help. I encourage anybody who is listening to this to go see help. Even if you're not struggling mentally, one one thing that the other co-founder or co-creator of Raids of Love, AW Rebels, Jason, he says, we regularly go to have our teeth and our health checked up on. Why do we not regularly go to have our mental health checked up on? And that's very true. It's a very, very good point. A lot of people will go to the dentist like every 6 months or something like that. People will go see a doctor every couple months, right? Why don't we go see therapists every couple months or for a little bit of the year, right? Just to, talk about anything that's been going on, get through any kind of trauma that you may not have realized was trauma, just to make sure that you are doing okay. And I encourage you, as a listener, as a viewer, as someone who is listening to me ramble on, I encourage you to not really follow my lead, but take it from someone who has struggled with mental health all of his life. Go get help. Go talk to someone. And I'm not saying talk to your mom, talk to your dad, talk to your friends, your significant other. Just go talk to a therapist, even if you don't think you need one. Just go talk to them. And, a lot of therapists will be like, well, what brings you in here today? Well, I haven't seen a therapist in a long time. A lot of stuff has happened. And I want to just make sure that I have the proper tools for whenever I end up getting to the point where there is a lot of stuff going on, a lot of things stressing me out. And, it never hurts. Like, yeah, okay, well, sure. It might be expensive sometimes, or it might be hard to maintain for long periods, but just a little bit of mental health focus here and there goes a long way. So, with that said, I'm going to end this episode here. Uh, I hope this was informative and help you realize that breaking the stigma behind mental health is okay, and it's okay to not be okay. There is help out there. There are people out there who care. Um, even if you don't know of anybody off the top of your head or don't know who to talk to, there's the Hope Line from Center for Suicide Awareness. There's many tools out there to really help you out and to help you get you into a better state of mind. And never feel bad for having a bad state of mind. It's part of human nature at this point. So, thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate every single person, whether you were here for 2 minutes or you were here for every episode for the entire episode. I appreciate you. And thank you guys so much for watching or listening. Make sure you like and share or whatever it is on any platform. Probably going to be, YouTube and Spotify only for a little while, but we'll probably start to come out on other platforms as time goes on. And I will see all of you guys next time. Bye, guys!